All right, all right. Welcome back to Anthony's Political Podcast. This is episode 14. All right. Thank you guys for this continued support. Thank you for the likes, the follows. Make sure you check out the podcast on your favorite platform. I'm now on YouTube as well as Rumble. Um, so, you know, and I'm working on getting on the other platforms such as Instagram, getting active on, X, um, other places like that. Maybe even TikTok one day, but I'm not sure. That's still up in the air. But all right, let's get right into the news. All right, so we got a couple housekeeping items for you. First, okay, first and foremost, John Fetterman. What's he been up to? Let's see. This is an X from Ryan Cheed. It says, I think most of us already knew that was the case, but it was kind of John Fetterman to confirm it for us. Okay? Let's see what he means by this.
You all should need to know that America is not sending their best and brightest, to Washington, D.C. Yes.
Look, he's like laughing like he just made a good joke that doesn't apply directly to him.
You all should need to know that America is not sending their best and brightest, to Washington, D.C. Yes. Like sometimes you literally just can't believe, these people are making the decisions that are, determining the government here. It's actually scary too. And
You don't say.
Before the government almost shut down. I mean, it came down to a couple hours. I was in my office, and they finally came over from the House, and they're like, okay, well, this has to be unanimous in the Senate. And out of 99 of us, if one single one of us would have said no, the whole government would have shut down. And that's how dangerous that is, to put that kind of power in one's hands, because you have some very less gifted kinds of people there that are willing to shut down the government just to score points on Fox. You all should need to know that.
All right, so he's obviously talking about Republicans, conservatives, and we can infer that because he said people are willing to shut down the government in order to score points on Fox. So he's obviously talking about conservatives here. It's just funny how he's one of the people who's not very gifted in Congress. And, that's probably mostly due to his stroke that he had a while back. But speaking of the stroke, he seems pretty cohesive right here. Don't you think? He seems very clear. He seems pretty lucid, which is kind of suspicious because I feel like 2 weeks ago he was not even close to this point. So I'm not saying that I don't want him to recover or to improve. What I am saying is, what do they have him on that's making him recover this fast? Because this dude is not John Fetterman. That ain't John Fetterman. It's crazy how he doesn't understand this assessment and realize that he's also, like, the crowd is laughing at him. Listen.
You all should need to know that America is not sending their best and brightest, to Washington, D.C.
Look, they're cracking up.
Yes.
And then even over here, he says, less gifted. Where is it?
Hands, because you have some very less gifted kinds of people there that are willing to shut down the government just to.
This honestly looks like an SNL skit to me. It really does. It really, really looks like that. You have some less gifted people, and everyone cracks up. They're all laughing at him. They're laughing at you, Fetterman. They're laughing at you because you can't string a sentence together before this week, or last week, apparently. So I just thought that was kind of crazy. I'm suspicious that this is even Fetterman, to be honest. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they had body doubles left and right for Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, John Fetterman. No one's immune. I mean, we know this. The technology exists. The CIA's been using near undetectable disguises like this for probably 20 years. So imagine how far prosthetics have come in 20 years. It wouldn't. I wouldn't put it past them to use a body double for John Fetterman, the least talented speaker in Congress. All right, let's move on. Got some more housekeeping. Andrew Tate, an ex for Andrew Tate. Hunter's out of the news. The border's out of the news. Ukraine is out of the news. Speaker drama out of the news. Biden crime family is out of the news. Worldwide illegal immigrant invasion is out of the news. Horrible economy is out of the news. Now do you get it? Okay. I believe this was in reference to the war in the Middle East. All right. I'm pretty, yeah, this is pretty accurate representation of the United States right here. And, the elites in New World Order. Because we quite literally did do that. We gave Iran like $6 billion or whatever. And, Joe Biden promised his aid to Israel and is rooting for the victory when in reality you just funded both sides, dude. It's kind of like the war in Eastern Europe, to be honest. We not, to my knowledge, we aren't directly funding Russia, but we did definitely stoke the flames that that made this attack possible in Ukraine. So, and we are literally funding Ukraine. So the US just loves playing war. All right, war makes the elites a lot of money, and half the time it kills the citizens' wallets. And in this case with Ukraine, it definitely is, and with Israel and Palestine, we'll see. Okay, we'll see. All right, and I know the day of jihad passed, right? It was the 13th, Friday the 13th. It is now the 16th at the time of filming this. However, I did enjoy this post, okay? And I did find it relatable, okay? It's, trending on X, Day of Jihad. Europe says, guess I'll die. United States has Chris Pratt with his excited face with, night vision goggles and a helmet and a gun. You know what I'm saying? This is in housekeeping because this is not realistic whatsoever. Okay. I know Americans, and I'm American, so I can say this. Americans talk a big game with, like America, like we're gonna step on you. You know what I'm saying? Like this guy said, remember to dip your hollow points in bacon grease today. Okay. Like, this girl says all my salon girls are ready to rumble. Like, bro, you ain't. None of us are ready to rumble. Okay? We possess like more than half the guns in the entire world. And we let our government get away with everything. The US citizens are all talk. The only way a US citizen is going to take up arms is if foreigners literally come into their front yard. If tomorrow Russian forces stormed our beaches and made their way to people's houses, you wouldn't see American citizens take up a gun unless somebody scratched their car. Okay? That's the only time you're going to see Americans going nuts on the day of jihad, okay? That's the only time you're going to see that. Every other time, Americans love just talking tough, okay? Like, even ex-military, people who are like cops, people who wanted to be military but were like too much of a like wimp to get in, all this stuff. Like, you may have guns and you may have an attitude, but like for some reason Americans just we don't show up. We don't show up. So that's why this is in housekeeping, because this is the most like unrealistic meme ever. The top part is fine. The top part is definitely realistic. Europe is definitely, that's their attitude, but the US has this attitude secretly, but we act like Chris Pratt. Okay? And I'm calling it out because it's like stupid behavior. Like, if you're gonna get excited for a global day of jihad, like participate in the festivities, okay? Take up your guns and stuff, like, but stop talking about it if you're not gonna do it, because it's like we're all talk. It's so annoying. All right. moving along, this is in housekeeping as well. It does relate to the war in Israel / Palestine. Okay, let's see what Pete Davidson has to say. This is from Marlene Robertson. Says Pete Davidson's own connection to terrorism makes his statement about Israelis and Hamas trauma a personal one and not a political one. Beautiful and heartfelt. Okay, I'm not including this because it's beautiful and heartfelt. And if you don't know, Pete Davidson's father was killed in 9/11, so he technically does have a connection to terrorism. Okay, so let's see what he says.
This week we saw the horrible images and stories from Israel and Gaza. And I know what you're thinking. Who better to comment on it than Pete Davidson? Well, in a lot of ways, I am a good person to talk about it because when I was 7 years old, my dad was killed in a terrorist attack. So I know something about what that's like. I saw so many terrible pictures this week of children suffering, Israeli children and Palestinian children. And it took me back to a really horrible, horrible place. And, no one in this world deserves to suffer like that, especially not kids, After my dad died, my mom tried pretty much everything she could do to cheer me up. I remember one day when I was 8, she got me what she thought was a Disney movie, but it was actually the Eddie Murphy stand-up special, Delirious. And we played it in the car on the way home, and when she heard the things Eddie Murphy was saying, she tried to take it away. But then she noticed something. For the first time in a long time, I was laughing again. I don't understand it. I really don't, and I never will, but sometimes comedy is really the only way forward through tragedy. My heart is with everyone whose lives have been destroyed this week. But tonight, I'm gonna do what I've always done in the face of tragedy, and that's try to be funny. Remember, I said try. And live from New York, it's Saturday night.
All right, so I included this in housekeeping because this touches on something that I'm gonna talk about later. Actually, I could talk about it now. So obviously, Pete Davidson is not a politician yet, I guess. But it's the same thing with celebrities as well. This specific conflict, right? This thing going on in Gaza is like really treacherous ground here. And I literally am quoting that from BBC News, okay? Now, I think the only way to really go about like having the world not get mad at you is to kind of have a lukewarm fence sitter type opinion. Okay? It's horrible on both sides, this stuff, like something like that. That's the kind of the only way you, as a celebrity or politician, you can kind of navigate this, because everyone is really, really split on this. Okay, this issue is really, really interesting to me because of that reason. All right, like you have the left is kind of divided into two groups. All right, you have the young left, which is like AOC's group of like followers. They're siding with Palestine pretty much. And then the older leftists, such as Joe Biden, politicians on the left, probably Hillary Clinton, I don't know, people like that, they are the ones who are in support of Israel. And then on the right, it also is kind of divided, not as much, okay? I don't think many people on the right are siding with Palestine here. But the right is divided into like two groups where half of the right is like gung-ho Israel and wants to throw aid their way, wants them to win, wants all this stuff to happen. And then the other half of the right is kind of like, yo, we just spent a year and a half not in support of a war in Ukraine and funding a war. Why are we sending aid to Israel as well? This is now two wars at once that we are funding. Okay, so the right is divided like that. It's the right is like divided on whether to support Israel or not to support them, whereas the left is like, some people are like gung ho, we have to support Israel, which is consistent with the Ukraine thing, to be totally honest with you. And then the other side, AOC's clan, and Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar, all those people. I think Jamal Browning also. He was, they're all in support of like Palestine, and they're saying that they support the Palestinian people and the refugees and all that. Which is, it's tough because there's kind of like a lot of factions involved here. There's like Israel, which is like the IDF, Then there's Hamas, who is to blame for the beginning attacks. There's the Palestinian people. There's Iranian citizens. There's the Iranian government. There's Hezbollah has commented. There's so many different factions that it's like, this could definitely be like a World War III, to be honest. And I don't mean to like fearmonger or say anything like that lightly. I'm just saying like anything has the capabilities of becoming World War III or a world war, but some look more likely than others. And if anything's going to be World War III, I could see Israel versus the entire Middle East being World War III. All right. So I could also see it totally staying in the Middle East, though, which I don't know, So Pete Davidson definitely, I guess, took the right side here, the right take, I should say, not a side. He didn't really pick a side. He took the right take here. He said it's horrible that kids have to go through this. No kid should have to go through that. There's obviously deaths are bad, and death is bad. So he's doing it right to save his fans, okay? From BBC, this is kind of talking about Israel-Gaza conflict proves treacherous ground for politicians. All right, obviously, as a politician, if the right and left are both divided, no matter what you pick, you're going to lose somewhere, If you're on the, pro-Israel right, that means you're losing. You're getting lost by, you're losing the pro stay out of it right and the pro-Palestine left. You may get pro-Israel left to agree with you, but I mean, how far is that agreement going to go? We don't know. All right. So let's see what this says. This is from BBC News. In the days immediately after Hamas attacks on Israel, the Republicans seeking U.S. presidency had focused their criticism on President Joe Biden and what they saw as Americans' weakness and missteps that had paved the way for violence. Okay. Excuse me, I just yawned. That is kind of a good approach, I guess. For a little while, at least. It's tough though, because if you criticize Joe Biden on this issue, people are going to ask what you are in support of, and then they're going to criticize you regardless of what your thoughts are. So, that changed on Wednesday night, however, when Donald Trump addressed the topic in a speech near his home in West Palm Beach, Florida. Now, some of Mr. Trump's rivals are condemning the former president in some of the most direct language of his campaign. Okay, during remarks to a crowd of supporters, Trump said Israel had to straighten it out because they're fighting potentially a very big force. Okay, he called Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant a jerk and repeatedly called Hezbollah, a militant Islamist group in Lebanon, very smart. Okay, Trump also said that Israel had initially agreed to work with the U.S. on a 2020 drone strike that killed Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani, but that they backed out last minute. Okay, I'll never forget that Bibi Netanyahu let us down. He said that was a very terrible thing in a television interview. So Trump has kind of an interesting take on this. If I had to guess, I would imagine he's pro-Israel still. But I'm not. I don't want to put words in his mouth. It's not positive that he's pro-Israel still. But Trump's take is interesting because Benjamin Netanyahu was very, not on board with the Soleimani thing. He bailed out last minute. Who knows why? But to the point about Lebanon's Islamist group Hezbollah being called very smart by Trump, that was not really in context. He's, it's okay to call somebody smart. Like, I think I have the actual video here. And it's kind of taken out of context a little bit. It's, it's okay to call an enemy smart. Like, it's fine. Intelligence does not mean morality. So let's see.
Let me play some of Mr. Trump's remarks Wednesday night.
I'll never forget that Bibi Netanyahu let us down. That was a very terrible thing. I will say that. When I see sometimes the intelligence, you talk about the intelligence,
I'll never forget.
Talk about some of the things that went wrong over the last week. They've got to straighten it out because they're fighting potentially a very big force. And they said, gee, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack from the north because that's the most vulnerable spot. I said, wait a minute. Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart. The press doesn't like when they say it.
Like, bro, he acknowledges that the press doesn't like it. It's okay to say that Hezbollah is smart. Okay? It's okay to say that they're smart enough to realize that if Israel goes, don't attack us from the north, we're vulnerable there. And it's true, you might want to attack from the north because that's where they're vulnerable. They're trying to win a war. It takes smarts to try and win a war.
So Hezbollah is very smart,
right,
attacking Netanyahu. He called the defense minister of Israel a jerk. I mean...
Look, this is classic Donald Trump, and it's really about petty grievances. What do we know about Donald Trump?
He's so petty. He's so petty. Donald Trump has time to be petty because he's a billionaire. All right? He's got time to be petty. You know who doesn't have time to be petty? People on the news. People on CNN. That's who ain't got time to be petty.
Loyalty is a one-way street. And I would say that this was not about Soleimani. This is about one thing which you mentioned, which is, oh my goodness, Benjamin Netanyahu picked up the phone and congratulated Joe Biden when he won the election.
Bro, big deal, dude. Big deal. The U.S. and Israel are like top allies. Of course, Netanyahu congratulates the new president. It's like what you do rhetorically when you're trying to establish a good business relationship with somebody. You start off on a good foot. You establish a precedent of treating each other well. That way your interactions are cordial in the future. That's all it was, bro. That's like, you can't, that doesn't mean that Benjamin Netanyahu's best friends with Joe Biden.
Which, to Donald Trump's mind, is the worst possible thing you could do.
I don't know, dude. I don't know. That's just, it's weak. It's weak sauce. That's all I'm going to say. It's weak sauce. Donald Trump calling Hezbollah smart is like not a criticism at all. All right. Let's move on. So obviously, people have their thoughts on the whole conflict with Gaza and, Israel versus Palestine, including LeBron James and other celebrities. This is actually not something I expected from LeBron. I'm going to be honest with you, okay? LeBron was in support of BLM. BLM has actively come out in support of Palestine, okay, / Hamas, basically, because it was Hamas attacks. I did not expect LeBron James to come out of this with Israel in mind, okay? Let's see. NBA star LeBron James released a statement supporting Israel after the country experienced some of the deadliest terror attacks in modern history over the weekend. James' statement comes after Palestinian terrorists with Hamas fired thousands of rockets into Israel on Saturday and simultaneously launched a ground invasion in which thousands of terrorists invaded the country and hunted down innocent civilians, okay? More than 1,300 Israelis were murdered and thousands were injured. The devastation in Israel is tragic and unacceptable, James said in a statement. The murder and violence against innocent people by Hamas is terrorism, okay? This is very tactful, okay? I'm going to be honest. I'm not a fan of LeBron. I think he's best. He shines the most in basketball, and he should keep it that way. However, if he's gonna comment, this was the way to say it correctly. The murder and violence of innocent people by Hamas is terrorism. Okay, so he blamed the people that were to blame. He did not blame Palestinian civilians. He blamed Hamas. Okay, that's good. That's tactful. The Spring Hill Company family sends our deepest condolences to Israel and the Jewish community. He continued, we pray for peace in the region and reiterate our continued commitment to fight hate in all its forms. Okay, that's fine. We all must work to ensure this tragedy does not spread even more hate, racism, and anti-Semitism, he said. All right, there's his statement. Maverick Carter and LeBron James. Okay. So this is mostly in housekeeping because, or I guess this isn't news. We're technically in the news. Maybe not. Anyway, this is in the podcast because I didn't expect LeBron James to side with Israel. I didn't expect that at all. So it's kind of making me suspicious as to why he would side with Israel. Okay. It's interesting though. But I do think, I agree with LeBron here. I never thought I'd say that, but here we go. All right, next. From Travis in Flint on Twitter /X, sorry. All right, it says rumors of World War III, Biden's actions hint at military draft on horizon. Okay. Underneath it, Vanessa tweets, Gen Z, you're up next. Travis says, sucks to suck. All right. Rumors of World War III, Biden's actions hint at military draft. Okay. Let me tell you something. If there is one time that I know of in history where the draft was a less good idea than it was the least good idea, it's now. Okay. The draft is a horrible idea. I get that it may be needed. That's what the draft is for. You may need troops to fight. However, I'm going to be totally honest. I could see the draft going out and people's getting announced that they're going to the Hunger Games, and just everyone says no. I could see that happening. Because if there's one military that no one wants to fight for, it's the gay, trans, forced vaccination military full of twinks who steal luggages and who do gay things and have drag shows in the military, okay? That's just how I feel, okay? And I believe that's how many people feel. The reason why the military recruitment is so low is probably because you have literal drag queens being public about their status as a drag queen while they're in the military, okay? No one wants to see that gay stuff from the military. When you think of military and you think of a military ad, you want to see stuff blowing up. You want to see, big brawny dudes with dirt all over their face and they're running through a minefield and fixing stuff on the battlefield. There's people taking out their rifles and getting headshots. You want to see people quick scoping the enemy, okay? You don't want to see some drag dude with butt injections doing some kind of twerk routine for his other military commanders, all right? That's the last thing you want to see. All right? That's Weenie Hut Jr.'s military. Okay? That's not the US military. All right? That's why no one wants to fight for the US, okay? On top of that, no one believes in half these wars that we're involved in, okay? No one believes in Ukraine. The people that are supposed to fight, like the military savvy dudes that are like slightly right wing, they ain't on board with the Ukraine war, okay? They ain't going to Ukraine. They're not going to Russia. They're not going overseas. And to be honest, half of them aren't going to the Middle East. They're not going to go to the Middle East. You're going to get, again, the right is kind of divided on this. So in addition to trash recruitment numbers from every branch pretty much across the board, maybe with the exception of the Marines, with trash recruitment, you're combining that on top of the fact that right-wing guys who are most likely to fight in the military are divided. Half of them don't care about Israel, don't think we should be over there. They don't think we should send money. They don't want to be there, okay? The other half are gung-ho for Israel. So out of all these people, what you need to satisfy two parameters. You need to satisfy right-wing military guys who are okay with this gay stuff, and you need to satisfy pro-Israel right-wing fighters who are okay with this gay stuff. And on top of that, they need to meet the physical and mental, requirements here. So you're just stacking things on top of each other that are going to weed out possible soldiers. When, in reality, like, I don't know, if you rewind 35 years, your draft numbers would look way different. Okay? You definitely don't need the draft if you rewind to 1990. Okay? All right, let's move on. Okay, so this is kind of in relation to World War III, rumors of World War III. Biden's actions hint the military draft. I'm going to skip this article because we just kind of talked about the draft. This was the source, though, okay? This was the source for the X that I showed you, the X post, all right? Okay, next up. This is from X as well. It's from Travis and Flint. Breaking news, okay? Reports are coming in that Biden and his administration is telling American citizens in Israel that they will have to pay reimbursements if they are evacuated from Israel. Okay? This is coming just one day after Joe Biden informed Americans still stuck there that they need to find their own way out, and multiple other countries, including Spain, Poland, Argentina, and others, have been evacuating citizens since the attacks. Okay? Welcome to Biden's America, he says, where they'll happily give illegals a flight to any U.S. city they choose, but American citizens abroad are told to fend for themselves. Is anyone surprised? Okay? I am not surprised. All right? This has happened with everything that Joe Biden is involved in, okay? Everything this dude touches turns to poop. All right? His whole entire presidency has been one giant drop of the ball. Okay? And examples of this would be you had naked gay twink people at the White House, all right, and like they were protesting outside. You had record high inflation. You have illegals storming the southern border, and they now, I'm told, outnumber the state of like Wisconsin or something in numbers. Okay, you have crime going absolutely sicko mode in your inner cities. All right? And you're not empowering DAs in cities to deal with it. You're not pressuring them to deal with crime, okay? On top of that, pulling out of Afghanistan was a complete bloodbath, okay? Everything that could have went wrong did, okay? Time frame was bad. People got stranded. Everything wrong that could have gone wrong happened, okay? And then on top of that, Hamas attacks Israeli people. There's Americans stuck there. Like, bro, I'm going to be honest, dude. Flights to get those people out of there should have been over. They should have been landing in the airports and, on airstrips like 6 hours after the attacks, bro. You should have had evacuations going like all night long. All right? But instead, you told them that they have to fend for themselves and get their own way home. And then, on top of that, you say, actually, we can evacuate some people. And it's good news, good. And then what? But you have to reimburse yourselves. Like, what? Are you serious? Illegals don't pay reimbursements to get flown or bused to Martha's Vineyard and other places. No one's paying reimbursements for all the Ukraine aid that they're getting. They're not paying anything back. No one's getting reimbursements for anything. And so, for sudden, like, bro, Americans are the only people that have to pay. Bro, get out of here, dude. Get out of here. This is why this guy will never win presidency again. Joe Biden will never be the president again. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. All right, next up. Should Adam Schiff be expelled from Congress for lying to the American public? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Next topic. we got an X from Tim Pool. All right. So he quoted a tweet from Patrick Casey. All right. It's a clip of Ben Shapiro. So the Patrick Casey tweet says, if Israel is forced to the wall, the possibility of nuclear exchange is extremely high. Today, Ben Shapiro told his audience that unless the United States provides material aid to Israel, it could find itself in a scenario where, it's nuking. All right. Tim Pool says Ben is completely correct in his assessment. But if the U.S. provides support in this growing conflict, it could go well beyond Iran and bring in Russia and China, okay? It could go well beyond that. It could. Either way you behave, it could end up in World War III, okay? It seems World War III is likely either way. Let's see what Ben has to say.
So the real risk for Israel in not finishing off Hamas right now is that this is taken as a sign of weakness, as it certainly would be, by Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a far more dangerous terrorist
Hezbollah. All right.
group than Hamas. Hamas is a dangerous terrorist group. They just proved it by killing 1,300 Jews. Hezbollah currently has over 100,000 highly sophisticated rockets aimed directly at the north of Israel. Estimates suggest that were Hezbollah to fire all of those rockets, we wouldn't be talking about 1,300 dead Jews. You would be talking about somewhere between 20 and 30,000 dead Jews, day one. If Hezbollah gets in, Israel will have no choice but to unleash the Air Force. If they unleash the Air Force, they're not going to be worried at that point about civilian casualties at all. They're simply going to have to eviscerate the entire south of Lebanon and topple the regime in Lebanon that supports Hezbollah. If that happens, Iran undoubtedly gets in, and so does Syria. If that happens, and Israel is now faced with a full war in the north, combined with a war in the south, because they will not have defeated Hamas, that's the predicate. If Israel is forced to the wall, the possibility of nuclear exchange is extremely high. That is why it is very important that the United States provide the material aid to Israel.
All right. So I could see this happening. Okay, I agree with Ben Shapiro a little bit. I also agree with Tim Pool, though, on the fact that even if the U.S. supplies aid, it still could end up in World War III. Because, to my knowledge, Russia and China are allied with the opposite Middle Eastern countries as us, basically. And that, at that point, you would have Israel, Palestine, Iran, Russia, China, Lebanon. I mean, it's Middle East and America. Like, at that point, you could see Britain coming in. You could see other Middle Eastern countries. You could see Germany or France going in. You could see, India probably. India would probably likely join in if everything, hits the fan, because they're right there, So it's definitely fuel for a world war. I will say that, okay? I guess I'd have a tendency to believe to agree that the U.S. should try and help Israel in ways that we can, but that is all predicated on us not helping Ukraine. We need to get out of Ukraine. I don't know why we're still there. We never should have sent money there in the first place, okay? All of that money, the U.S. should have taken 10% of that and given it to Israel, and that's it. The other 90% that we gave to Ukraine should literally just still be in our economy. It's annoying, okay? Because I'm not for war, okay? However, I do have a place in my heart for Israel. This is something that, it's a religious feud that's been going on for thousands of years. And, I'm a Christian, I side with Israel, okay? However, just throwing money out the window to everything is a little reckless. It still could start a world war, like Tim said. It's not. It may not prevent anything from happening. Okay, it might be inevitable. So, I'm not sure. All right. Speaking of Tim, we got something from TimCast. Okay, let's see what they're saying on TimCast.
No matter where it's coming
from.
Well,
you saw Lindsey Graham, right?
Yeah.
His latest thing was where he said that he wants to bomb Iran even with no evidence.
Yep. That was crazy.
And that was insane. That guy should resign. That dude's evil.
Women are going crazy.
Bro, that's nuts. All right. The fact that he said we should bomb Iran with no evidence, that's wild. That's crazy. All right. Next clip. This is the last thing, and this is kind of wrapping up the entire topic, I guess, of Israel and Palestine. This is in relation to talking about the the conflict going on in Israel and Palestine. So let's see what's happening.
Head on a swivel. Head on a swivel out there.
Yeah, definitely a day to keep your head on a swivel. I've noticed a lot of celebrities are chiming in.
Oh, yeah.
On the situation in Israel, but like no one really knows what they're talking about.
Of course.
So a lot of
You know why no one knows what they're talking about? Because this has been going on since literally Bible times. This has been going on since like 1000 BC. To approximate a date, if you want specific dates, okay? It's probably around 1000 or 1500 BC that this has been going on since. So even the locals who live in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Israel, like no one actually knows anything, okay? No one actually knows. This is an ancient feud. It's gone back to 1500 BC. People who have, even an 89-year-old guy who lives in Gaza has no idea, okay? He does not know all the facts. That's why no one knows about this, including celebrities, especially people in the West like us, okay? All my opinions on this thing come with a huge disclaimer and a huge, warning label. And that warning label is, I'm not Middle Eastern. I was not born in the Middle East. I don't have history there. I have never studied the Middle East. I am a American citizen with an outside, armchair quarterback's take, okay? That is my warning label and my preface to this.
celebrities will post and then like delete their post 5 minutes later because of all the bad comments on either side.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just,
Yeah, that's Justin Bieber did that. If you don't know, he posted like a thing from another Instagram account, and it was like, it was like pray for Israel, but people noticed that the actual picture in the frame was not from Israel. It was not a picture of Israel. It was, maybe Palestine or something else, which is, it's not the only celebrity deletion of a tweet. I'm pretty sure like Kylie Jenner or someone deleted a tweet.
just kind of like it makes you realize like we don't really need to hear from everyone.
And that's a common theme. Not everyone needs to do everything. Matt Damon, he doesn't need to weigh in. I mean, unless he wants to say like America, no intervention, then Matt Damon, you're free.
Yeah,
good.
Exactly. We don't need to hear from everyone. If you're a stupid girl who thinks she's an influencer, we don't really need your half-baked opinion. Guys follow you because you work out in your underwear and post pictures of it.
Yeah, and you post an angle that you really know what you're doing with.
Yeah.
So let's stick to that. No Israel Hamas, no Middle Eastern relations stuff.
Exactly. We don't really need to hear your international relations opinions on this ancient blood feud.
Exactly. And that's what it is. And people.
Yeah, I agree with them. We don't like, even no one needs my opinion, I'm just saying it because it's fun. So, and I'm prefacing it with like, I'm not going to get mad if you disagree with me. I'm saying my opinion because I like to, and if you don't want to hear it, that's fine. And if you don't agree, that's fine. I'd be happy to talk about, pretty much any subject, but it's just funny that like people get so flustered and so passionate about something that they literally have, like they have no clue what they're talking about. Like, again, you get paid to, you bring in money on social media for working out in your underwear, and people like how your butt looks in those pants. Like that's the extent of your influence online. And if like there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. Like you make your living that way. You don't need to you don't need to comment on the Middle East. You don't need to comment on political science and the geopolitical climate of things. It's not for you. You're famous for doing deadlifts in tight yoga pants. Go do your RDLs, and people will watch your reels for that. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Shout out to FLECCAS Talks, the best new podcast of all time, and TimCast IRL. All right, they are two very big influences that I take in weekly. So, it's always good to hear their funny takes with things and hear their wisdom from stuff. So, but that is all I got for you guys today. All right, that concludes episode 14. Again, if you like the content, make sure you drop a like, follow along on YouTube and Rumble. My other socials I don't really use them too much, but if you really want to follow, you can. All right. And that's it. That's basically it. I apologize for missing the post deadline again. Today is Monday, and I forgot to post for Sunday at 3. I just I didn't have all the things that I wanted to talk about yet, so I'm the worst. What can I say? All right, peace.